All right, so in this video, hello, yes, I'm recording the video right now and you should definitely watch this video tonight because we're covering 6 advanced UI design tips that I don't think many people talk about. And these tips are actually going to make you better, more experienced, and probably get you that pay rise that you've been wanting. All right, well, I hope you enjoy the video. So let's go ahead and dive into the very first advanced UI design tip. So the first one is around considering all user roles. So when we are designing applications, we generally just think about the first one, which is the first time user. It's generally the most common scenario that most designers design for and think about. But there are 2 other scenarios that you should also consider in your workflow as well: repeat user and the super user. So this first time user is a person who just opens up the app for the first time. Then you have the repeat user, so someone who maybe has made a first purchase and is returning for the second time. Then you have the super user, someone who maybe has purchased 50 or even 100 times through the platform and they really understand what the application is about. And as you can see, all 3 user roles will have 3 different levels of expectations. So if we think about this in the context of Uber Eats, now this screenshot, as you see on the screen, was screenshotted just a few days ago. But the first time user, as you can see, it's summarized as we don't know anything about this user, right? It's their first time using the application. Now the questions they might be asking would be that, how do I use this app? And what food choices are available? Now obviously they'll be asking many other questions, but these are 2 just to help paint the picture. So first time user comes into the app, and as you can see with Uber Eats, that at the top they have a nice search bar to encourage search. They also bring through some key categories. It's like restaurants, grocery, convenience, alcohol, and ride. So they're trying to encourage them to explore the app. Then they have a big banner around service fees. And then at the bottom, you have a list of all the results. But as a returning user, and as I believe a super user, when I come into the app, I still see the same screen. So a lot of this real estate is wasted. Why? Because as a repeat user, we already know a little bit about this user. So the questions I might be asking as a repeat customer is that, well, I don't really need to know how to use the app anymore. I just want to know, how do I reorder a past order? Because as someone who orders through Uber Eats, I generally will order from the same restaurant, the same cafes, and generally the same types of meals. So helping them actually find their past orders and be able to reorder them quickly might be a better way to utilize this real estate. So here on the right hand side, you can see that I've actually changed the design a little bit. Without having to redesign the entire app, we can maybe make it more effective for repeat customers. So at the top, you can see that I've actually reduced the tab sizes. We don't need to blast groceries and also the restaurants in their faces every single time. If they're not going to click on it, they're not going to click on it. So we can maybe trim that down and then actually bring through some components that might actually answer some of their questions. Now, what about the super user? What do you think we can do with the super user to actually make the home screen a little bit more engaging for them? So what we can do is, with the super user, we actually know a lot about this user because they've actually ordered a lot of stuff through the application. So some of the questions that they might be asking would be, how do I order my favorite meal? And then the second question is, well, if you already know what my favorite meals are and my favorite restaurants are there any alternatives to my favorite cuisines or restaurants that I always order from? Now, as you can see, by just thinking quickly about the 3 different user roles, you can come up with some very interesting designs which are going to answer some of those key questions that your users are asking. So many of you guys have been asking, so I am slashing 30% off everything. Figma Masterclass course, which now has over 4,200 students and 5-star reviews. Shipfaster UI, which is our premium Figma Design System with over 2,000 designers using it every single day. And then we also have Outline, which is our wireframing kit for Figma. So if you want to get 30% off any of these products or courses, make sure to check the link in the description. There is a coupon code and it all expires on the 26th of November, which is this Saturday. So if you want to get it, make sure to take advantage of it right now. Back to the video. Now, the second advanced UI design tip is going to be avoid conflicting copy and messaging. So let's take a look at this. Now, I saw this really great example done by Jen in Ad La. Let's just call her Jen for now. And she went ahead and redesigned a tooltip or error modal, sorry. Now, let's see what she did to revise this. So she has stated, say what actually happened, so unable to connect your account. Then we provide reassurance of what's happened. Your changes were saved. Then we said, say what happened or say why it happened, but we could not connect your account due to technical issue on our end. Give them a way out, which is to contact customer care, and then help them fix it, which is please try connecting again. Now, there are two fundamental flaws that I personally see in this error modal. Now, have a think about it. What do you think those two issues are? I'll give you 5 quick seconds. All right, so what I think is wrong about this is that first, there is conflicting messaging in this error modal. So first we have a positive reassurance and then we have a negative reassurance. So the first one is that we're saying in this actual error modal that something successful happened, right? Your changes were saved. And then right after we say, well, we could not connect your account due to a technical issue on our end. So I think fundamentally, I think there is just two conflicting points in this error modal. Okay. Now, the second thing I believe is happening, there are just way too many call to actions. Do I cancel? Do I exit? Do I try again? Do I contact customer care? We haven't prioritized for the user what we believe is the best solution. So here's what I would like to propose. Now, based on the example that Jen has provided over here, and obviously so kindly, now the first thing I want to do is actually just remove all the CTAs, right? And just prioritize the CTA that I believe is going to be most effective for the end user. So I'm streaming everything out and I'm just doing the hard work for them and just recommending they should just try again because this just might be a once-off issue, okay? The second thing I've done is actually taken out the your changes were saved. I think that just makes it confusing. Now, your changes were saved, that is an entirely different topic. I believe if changes are saved automatically, I believe they should be done in the background. For example, Figma doesn't constantly remind you things are being saved. They just save it in the background, but that's a different story. So with the error modal, I want to keep the messaging really clear, right? If it's an error, it's an error. Then I want to reduce the number of CTAs and just keep it to try again, right? We're just encouraging them to try again because we believe that it should be a once-off issue. So what happens is the user clicks try again because that's the only CTA or that could cancel. We do a try again. And then we actually say, well, we still are unable to connect your account at this time. You can chat with our live support or try again later. So here we confirm that there is definitely an issue. And the solution is to actually contact our support team to get this issue fixed, or they can try again later by hitting cancel. Now, the third advanced UI design tip is visual reinforcement, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at that design I just put together, which was designed with my very own design system, Shipfaster UI. So if you do want to get 30% off for Black Fridays, link is in the description. Make sure to check it out. Now back to the original design. So here we have unable to connect your account. We have some sort of message and we have cancel and try again. Now in the context of visual reinforcement, what do you think the problem is with this error modal? Have a think about it, 5 seconds. All right, so there are two things. Now, the first thing is that when you are reading this modal, it's not clear immediately that it's an error, right? You actually have to read through the copy to really understand that there's an error that's happening, okay? So what I want to put forward is, here's the enhanced version. If it's an error, we can utilize an icon, right? A red icon to really just indicate something, warning, something is happening here, right? Pay attention. So really quickly, just a quick glance, you can see right away that there's an error, right? Without really having to read any copy or content. Then the second thing is that if we have a second modal, which is encouraging them to chat with support, if this button or if this link is going to link them off to a different section of the website or the web application, we want to let them know with a visual indication, right? Visual reinforcement that this button is going to take them somewhere else. Just in case, I don't know the context of where this modal would be, but imagine it's on their edit profile, they fit out all this information, and if they hit chat with support and we take them right away, if that information isn't saved, we might frustrate the user. So we just have to make sure that we let the user know that this button is going to take them somewhere else. So with some very simple visual cues or reinforcement, we can really spruce up this modal. One, make it look more beautiful, and second, actually deliver a better experience. Now, the fourth advanced UI design tip that's going to get you that pay rise is around UI kits and design systems. Now, the first thing I want to answer is, when should you even consider using a UI kit or a design system? Okay, so here's a very quick matrix. Now, on the y-axis, we have deadline, whether you have an extended deadline or you have a very tight and short deadline. On the x-axis, we have what type of application or what type of medium you are designing for. So whether it's a website or if it's an application, which includes web apps and mobile apps. Now, websites are generally a little bit more creative, generally. And then applications are generally more focused around functionality and usability. The two are similar, but they also demand very different expectations from the user. Companies generally are a little bit more flexible in terms of what we do on the website. There's a little bit more branding and creative flair with it. So here, if you are working on a website and you have a very extended deadline, it's a little bit orangey with a thumbs up and a down, because you can choose, do you want to use a design system or not, or a UI kit? Because if you've got a lot of time, you can create your own. And if you're working on a website, there's a bit more of creative freedom there. So do you want to limit yourself to a design system or an existing UI kit? All right. Same on the right-hand side. If you have an extended deadline and you are working on an application, you can use a design system, or you might not need to use a design system. Why? Because you have a lot of time on your hands and you can maybe create your own. Now, when it comes to having a short deadline, whether you are working on a website or an application, I think it's time to consider using an existing UI kit or a design system, because it would definitely help speed up your process. Now, here's a quick example. I've already connected my Shipfaster UI design system and UI kit to this project. Now, once again, if you do want access to this design system and want 30% off for Black Friday, check the link in the description. The promo ends this Saturday, so make sure to jump onto it. So here, I can select the screen, Shift-I to open up my components, type in header, right? And then I can go enter, pop down a header, right? I can align this to the top. I can also turn this entire frame into an auto layout. While that is selected, I can then go Shift-I once again. Maybe I want to put down a footer. Boom, I can chuck down a footer, right? And then once again, I can do Shift-I, and maybe I want to put down a contact form. Okay, so put down a contact form, and that pops it down, holding down Shift, boom, I have an entire page set up already. And in here, depending on what design system or UI kit you're using, over in Shipfaster UI, we have a lot of different variations. So you can just pop in, create whatever you want, literally in seconds. And that's why when I say, if you're working on a project that doesn't allow you to have much time to design, existing design systems and UI kits are going to be extremely powerful. All right, let's go through another example. So let's go select this page, Shift-I, I might put down a header, done, move it to the top, then Shift-A to make that into auto layout. I might put down a team. Maybe we're designing the team page, and then Shift-I once again, put down the footer, and there we go. Once again, really quickly, within a couple of seconds, you have pretty much a whole brochure website done really quickly, and you can obviously customize it a little bit to bring through their brand. Now, if you notice, every component that we put down into our Figma file from the actual design system is a component. Now, when you do hand these designs over to developers, it can be a little bit harder for the developer to understand what components from the design system are being utilized. So here, you can actually go ahead and go to your plugins, download the free Zeplin Figma plugin. And what you can actually do is, once you open it up, you can go ahead and select the designs that you want to hand over to developers, right? So I want to maybe sync up these two designs. I can hit export. I can create a new project for the web, and I can actually go ahead and sync up these designs to Zeplin. Now, the powerful thing from here is that once these designs are synced up to Zeplin, I can go ahead and open this up in the app. I can bring this over into the screen, and you can see that down at the bottom, if I'm going to go ahead and show components in Zeplin, it can actually detect all the different components that are being utilized in this design. So if a developer wanted to understand what components are utilized in what screens and in what flows, here they can actually see where they're all being used. Now, one additional benefit is that if, let's say, we want to understand where this header component is being utilized across the entire project, the developer can click on it, and they can actually see that this component is being used in 2 screens in this entire project. If you click on this little arrow, it shows you exactly where all these components are being utilized. So it provides a developer a really good bird's eye view of the entire project and where exactly each component is being utilized. Now onto the fifth advanced UI design tip. This one is around Figma Design System slots. Now, if you haven't heard about this concept, I'm going to walk you through it. You're going to absolutely love it. Now, obviously, design system slots aren't going to be relevant to every single designer. It's probably a little bit more relevant to a designer that's working in-house in a startup or in a company that has one key product. For example, Shopify, Spotify, Slack, Messenger, or even Instagram. Mainly because when you are working on just one product, you do want to invest a little bit more time into the design system behind it. But if you're working as a freelancer or in an agency, this might not be as relevant, mainly because you are working on so many different projects. You don't really need to build such an advanced and intricate design system because you're going to be moving on to all these different projects. So let's say you are working on a project where you do need to invest into the design system, and you want to bring a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you are creating your components. So here we have a modal from my Shipfaster UI design system. So as you can see, if you double click into the actual component, you can see that there is really just one way of creating this modal, right? Because this modal is the instance of a component and I can't really add anything inside it, right? So if I copy this content and hit Command V, you can't edit this modal. So this modal is perfect for someone who is just working really quickly on lots of different projects because they don't really need to customize it too much. But if you are working on a project where maybe you are working on a Shopify, right? And we need a few different variations of a modal, right? So maybe one modal needs to have an image and one modal needs to have content inside. So how do we actually go ahead and create slots in our design system? So here we have all the different elements that go inside a modal, right? So if I show you, we have an auto layout component. Inside the container, we have all these different types of modal elements, right? So we have the slot, we have actions, we have images, we have text, title, and icon. So the first thing we want to do is we actually want to go ahead and make sure that we have all the elements that we need. I can then hit Command Option K, and I want to turn all these elements that are going to be plot into the actual modal as a component. So on the right hand side, I have a new modal that I'm going to create with slots. So the first thing I want to do is I actually want to go and hit Shift I, and I want to look for my modal slot, and I'll put down the slot. And here I can go ahead and hit Command D a few times. So let's say every modal needs 5 slots, okay? We have 5 slots over here. And what I want to be able to do is, instead of defining what the modal looks like and set that in stone, I just have 5 slots and I can replace each slot with some sort of element or another component from my design system. So from here, I can actually go ahead and select this slot, and I can go ahead and change this slot to maybe a title, right? Or I can actually change it to the icon. Then the second one, I can go ahead and change this to a title. I can change the third one to the text. And then I can change the last one to the actions. And then the last one, we actually might be able to turn that off. So to really take this even further, what we need to do is now we need to turn the actual modal slots that's wrapping all these instances into a component. Okay, so by Command Option K, I can turn this into an actual component. So now this is a component. What we can actually access is now component properties. So if I click on a modal slot, under the layer, I can click on this cute little icon, which is to create a Boolean property. And I can go show modal slot. We can rename that to maybe slot 1. And then we can show value is true because we are going to keep this on. So create property, boom, done. Now, as you can see, I've gone ahead and created multiple slots. So if we now go into my components library and I type in modal slots, and I bring down an instance of this modal, here you can see that I can now start turning them off and on depending on which one I want. So let's just say I want modal slot 1 on. I can then click into the slot and I can actually go ahead and change this slot to the icon, right? And then I can turn these ones on and then change the second one to the actual title. I can change the second one, a third one to maybe image this time, And then I can change the fourth one to actions. So here you can start to create multiple variations of the modal. So if I go ahead and duplicate this and bring this out over here, I can actually change the third one to text. And as you can see, you can now create multiple variations of the modal by utilizing slots. Now I totally forgot to include the component property side to this modal. So if you remember, we have just allowed ourselves to create a Boolean option for our modal so we can turn things on and off depending on what we want. Now what if we wanted to actually be able to swap out all the components in our panel over here in the component properties? What we can do is we can actually go ahead and double click on our slots. We can go and enable create instant swap property, which will allow us to swap components out for this component. So we might call this the icon, because this would be the icon at the top of the modal. Then the second one might be for title. So we can create one for title. And then we can create a slot for content. So in this, we can create a property called content. And then the last one, we can maybe call this the action bar or the CTAs. So let's just call it CTA. So now when we click on this modal, you can see that we can turn things on and off as desired. But depending on what type of content we want, we can actually now go ahead and swap this out for an image. And we have an entirely new modal, right? And we can turn the image off, or the action bar off, sorry. And then we can turn it back on. We can turn off the image, which is the content. And this allows us to create dynamic modals all within our panel. Now, the final advanced UI design tip is how not to ask for UI design feedback. Now, I'm sure this has happened to you before. So if you want to progress in your career as a UI and UX designer and actually garner more meaningful feedback for the projects that you work on, so you can actually grow, learn, and actually get a pay rise, you want to do something like this. So instead of just sending your designs out and asking, what are your thoughts? You want to really nail it down and get really concise on exactly what you want. So here I've mapped out a template that you can use. So you want to greet the person. So, hey Michael, thank you for agreeing to taking the time to provide some feedback on my latest designs. You want to provide a bit of context around the project that you're working on so they understand the situation that you're in. So Uber Eats helps people order food and have it delivered on demand. We've realized 60% of our repeat users order the same meals 90% of the time. So that's what's happening right now on Uber Eats. Obviously, this is hypothetical. Then you want to provide what is the actual problem that you're working on. So the problem is that because of this happening, the problem is that our existing users need to tap 4 times to find their previous orders to reorder it. My proposed solution is to bring forward their favorite orders to the home feed to make the purchase easier and quicker. And then at the end, you need to provide, what do you want? What's your clear request? I would love to hear your thoughts on whether or not we have missed a specific use case. So you don't get feedback around good, not bad, logo should be bigger. You don't get that type of feedback because you've actually provided a clear scenario to your friend, your design manager, or the product manager, and you've also provided a clear request. They know exactly what you want. So here's a template. Feel free to actually screenshot it. And when you get that pay rise, I wouldn't mind you gently smashing the like button for this video. Now, once again, we are running a Black Friday promo, 30% off everything at the Designership, which is the Figma Masterclass and also our design system and also our wireframing kit right now. So make sure to check the link in the description. Now, we are going to be dropping a new course soon. I've been working on it endlessly, so make sure to keep your eyes peeled out for that. Now, with that said, if you enjoy this video, make sure to gently smash that like button, subscribe for the die-hard fans, and I will see you in another video very soon.